Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's a pleasure and honor to be speaking to you here this evening in beautiful Vienna. I just want to tell you something before I came here, because obviously Rabbani mentioned that I get sometimes problems with passporting. That's an understatement. When I came here at the airport yesterday, everybody was kind of flowing through nice and quickly, and I knew as soon as they scanned my passport something's going to happen, and it did. And the officer, I think the officer was a Muslim. He looked Middle Eastern in a sense, and he started to look at my passport, and he started to confer with the other officer. Look at this passport, look at this guy, what's the story with him? And then he asked me, why are you here? And I said, I'm here to do a talk. He said, can you show me some evidence? And I showed him a poster of this evening. So he took a look, and it's in German, so I don't even know what the poster says. And he looked at it and he said, wow, really? Is that going to happen tomorrow? I said, yes, hopefully, inshallah. And he said, can I come? I said, you're most welcome. So if you are here tonight, I can't see you, but if you are here tonight, you're most welcome. But please, when the time comes to go, let me go easy. You know, in 2006, the foreign minister of Austria, I think her name is Ursula Plasnik, she made a statement at the European Union. She said Guantanamo, the prison at Guantanamo, is an anomaly, and that it should be closed. And that was a pretty strong statement back in that time, because Guantanamo had only been open for about four odd years. And to call Guantanamo an anomaly just means it's something strange. It doesn't mean that it's a torture camp. It doesn't mean that it's a concentration camp. It doesn't mean that it's a place where people are held without charge or trial and denied the most basic rights that any human being, even if they're convicted of the worst crimes, will get. It doesn't say that at all. It just means it's a strange place. It's an odd place. And we don't like having oddities in the Western world. You know, just 2 days ago, the United Nations made a statement on Guantanamo. After 21 years and 800 prisoners from 50 different countries, you know what they said? Officially, that Guantanamo is a crime against humanity. That's what the United Nations just said now. 21 years later. It took them that long to recognize that holding people, kidnapping them from their homes in front of their wives and their children, which is what they did to me in Pakistan in 2002. Taking them off to a different continent without any legal process, without any extradition process, without any crime being alleged, without any court, without any defense, without any prosecution, without any jury, without any judge, to simply hold a person in a cell that measures 8 foot by 6 foot and to torture them, literally, whether it's tying their hands behind their backs and kicking and punching them, whether it's bringing photographs of their wives and children in front of them, whilst in the next room there's a woman screaming that they're made to believe is their wife being tortured. All of that, 20 years of evidence, of books being written, of films being made in Hollywood, of awards being given in Hollywood for best film on torture. 21 years of all of that, and they finally say it's a crime against humanity. Just think about that for a moment. What's happening in Ukraine is terrible. But it's not been 21 years of abuse. Yet they're calling for people to be sent to The Hague, to be tried for war crimes. As part of my work with CAGE, I have given evidence to the international court, to the International Criminal Court, for the role of the United States in my abuse, in the Bagram detention facility, in Guantanamo, and the abuse of others, including eyewitnessing the murder, the cold-blooded murder of 2 Afghan captives. One of them with his hands tied above his head to the top of the cage, being kicked to death by American soldiers, something I saw with these 2 eyes. An unarmed prisoner being killed in his own home by an army of occupation. How was that not seen as something that's worthy to be labeled as a war crime? How is it possible that the entirety of the Western world cannot bring itself to hold those war criminals accountable for the most obvious and lengthy place that exists to this day where those war crimes are being committed? It's still open. Guantanamo is still open. There's still 30 prisoners there held without charge or trial. Forget the case of Moazzam Begg. I was held for 3 years only. I'm a British citizen. I came back home to my children. They were 3 years older. One of them had just been born when I was taken into custody, and I saw him for the first time when he's 3. But my story is nothing compared to some of the prisoners we're advocating on behalf of. Just last week, one of the prisoners came back home from Guantanamo after 21 years. No court, no charge, no trial. For the first several years, he was terribly abused, beaten and tortured. The length to which the United States went to demonize Muslims has been so profound that has been felt here in Austria, in Vienna, a country that has had very little to do with the war on terrorism, other than what you've heard in Operation Luxor. But one of the reasons why it was so easy to abuse us, because what was reverberating around the world, what was echoing around the world, is that Muslims are extremists. Muslims are prone to become terrorists. Muslims are fundamentalists. Muslims are zealots. Muslims are subhuman. And that's why the first terminology they used to describe us as prisoners was not prisoners of war. It was not prisoners. It was not captives. It was enemy aliens. The first terminology to describe us was enemy aliens. Meaning that you are the opposite, you are our foes, and you're something from out of this world. You're subhuman. And when that reverberated around the world and everybody started using that same language, it hasn't ended. That language continues. If you go out in the streets in rural Austria and you ask an ordinary person who doesn't know much about Islam and say, what's the first word that comes into your mind when I say the word Islam? He's going to say terrorist or extremist. And you can do that in England. You can do that in Germany, you can do that in Poland, you can do that in Hungary, you can do that in the United States of America, you can do it in Canada, you can do it in Austria, you can do it in New Zealand. It's obvious. If 1/4 of the world's population, which are Muslims, if we were all extremists and all terrorists, is that what they really want us to believe? Because that's what happened with Guantanamo. People, prisoners from 40 different nations. Prisoners from Australia, prisoners from Britain, from Canada, from Belgium, from Germany, from Spain, from Iraq, from Afghanistan. You name the country, there's prisoners from there. And all of them have been described as subhuman. All of them